Well, discussion about racism was mentioned during last night's presidential address from President Biden during the joint address to Congress. He also mentioned that the criminal justice system is systemically racist. The GOP offered their own rebuttal. Joining us to discuss, retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Also joining us is retired Sergeant Betsy Brainier-Smith. She's a 29-year police veteran and a National Police Association spokesperson. Great to see you both today. I do appreciate you taking the time. Cheryl Dorsey, we'll just start with you here. Assuming everyone had been listening to the speeches we heard from both men last night. I'm talking about President Biden and, of course, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina as well. What were your first thoughts on the remarks, Cheryl?
Well, you know, we continue to have the same discussion, and what I'd like to hear from everyone who speaks about the institutionalized racism that exists across these 18,000 police departments is accountability, what that looks like, and how do we go about holding officers who act in a way contrary to their training accountable.
You know, we also heard during the president's speech last night, he encouraged Congress to come forward and pass police reform acts, specifically linked to George Floyd, the act in his name. Betsy, do you think we could see some reforms to policing in the United States? Do you think that that is something that is needed?
Well, law enforcement is always trying to improve itself. I've been involved in law enforcement since the late 70s, and we constantly make improvements in our training, in our tactics, in our dealings with the community. And yes, we need to be held accountable, and we are, but we also have to have a discussion about the accountability of our citizens, especially the accountability of people who are committing crimes, who are trying to injure police officers, and then, their families want to call it racism, when what it is police responding to various felonious crimes and attacks. That's what we also need to talk about.
Yeah, very true. And we are engaging in this conversation. I'm glad you both are here to talk about it. I want to play for our viewers, though, a soundbite from Senator Tim Scott. He delivered the Republican Party's rebuttal to the president's speech last night. Here's what he said about America and racism. Here's that.
The same filibuster that President Obama and President Biden praised when they were senators, the same filibuster that the Democrats used to kill my police reform bill last year, has not suddenly become a racist relic just because the shoe is now on the other foot. Race is not a political weapon to settle every issue the way one side wants. It's far too important.
So that was, of course, in regards to the filibuster and the conversations that Democrats have said, claiming that it is now a relic of the Jim Crow era. But Cheryl, we heard from Senator Tim Scott, and I found it was interesting, of course, that he was chosen to represent and present the GOP rebuttal because he had come forward with the police reform bill. Perhaps now there will be another attempt at finding a bipartisan approach to police reform. Do you think that could spark a new conversation?
Well, obviously there's a conversation that's going on, but what I don't expect to happen is any real reform because we've already heard from Tim Scott, and, I don't find it odd that they chose him. He's what I refer to as Skinfolk, not Kinfolk. He's already said that qualified immunity is a non-starter, and so if you don't do anything to deter the bad behavior, if you don't deal with qualified immunity, and I mean get rid of it, if you don't decertify officers who violate their oath to serve and protect, who use deadly force as a first resort rather than a last resort because they're dealing with things that are inherent to police work, folks running, folks not compliant, then we're going to continue to have this issue. Why would an officer like Derek Chauvin do anything different? He had 18 personnel complaints on his way to 19 before he murdered Mr. Floyd in front of us.
I want to go back just on that one remark you made about how you view Senator Tim Scott, because online on Twitter last night, Uncle Tim was trending, and it continued to trend on social media platforms, and that could be considered highly offensive to those members of the African-American community here. Betsy, how are you viewing sort of this mixed reaction that we've seen online and social media to a black member of the Republican Party speaking out?
Well, to attack a senator solely because of his skin color is racist. So if we're going to call Tim Scott names like Skinfolk and Uncle Tim, solely because of his color, and also because he doesn't believe what others believe, that is truly racist. So if everything is racist, if all we're going to talk about is race, when we talk about police reform, we aren't going to get anywhere. If we're going to address race, we also have to look at real facts. We have to look at criminal statistics. Let's find out why less than 13% of the population commits 52% of the violent crime in this country. Let's realize that, in fact, police officers utilize deadly force on white people twice as often as anyone else. Let's stop with the race talk and talk real facts. Look at the profession of law enforcement and understand that police don't make the law. So if people want different laws, if we're not going to enforce drugs, if we're not going to make traffic stops, that's not up to the police. We're tasked with enforcing the laws that legislators make.
Yeah.
So let's address some of the real factual situations and stop race baiting each other and making this a left and right issue.
Yeah, I know. And we could have this conversation. This is quite frankly what needs to happen, are all these different viewpoints coming together and talking it out. Unfortunately, we're out of time for our segment, though. Cheryl and Betsy, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.